Banking Main Street, and the small business lenders who make it grow. Thank you for this week's sponsor, America West. Chuck Evans, President of Capital Growth Solutions and founder of the revised America West Conference in June in Costa Mesa, California. Chuck, why do you want your lenders to bring their staff to your event?
Our conference is going to be a little different than the other regional conferences that have been out there that are very, very good. We're going to focus on education. These are going to be 18 classes, 90 minutes each, with 2 or 3 instructors or facilitators in each class. The price points where we're focusing on lenders that are doing maybe 6-7 loans a year or getting into SBA lending, want to build out a department. There's lots of questions that we hear when we talk to these lenders that this kind of information isn't necessarily discussed at some of the other venues like NAGL and the district offices. So we're going to focus on some of the areas that the questions that you have in starting departments are growing from 6 loans to 16 loans a year.
And you have the buy-in from SBA. You have a great,
absolutely,
a lot of peer professional. Yes. So that's great. See you all in June in Costa Mesa.
Thank you very much, Bob. See you then.
Here's today's top story. 2 huge items for the SBA 504 loan program: 25-year debentures and elimination of the personal resource test, the personal liquidity test, whatever you want to call it, for minority shareholders. Listen to the conversation I had with Chris Hearn. Chris Hearn, CEO, founder, Fountainhead Capital, live from San Francisco.
Yep, sure am. The Linden FinTech Conference.
What are you doing out there, Chris?
Just meeting with a bunch of folks, talking about our business and how we do things, and how we're innovative in various things. So it's been interesting. It's been a real crash course of meetings yesterday and today and tomorrow.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. 2 huge items happened in the 504 world last week. Number 1, we now have a 25-year debenture. Let's start with that. What does that mean? Why do we care where we were at 20? Now I can go 25 fixed rate, 25-year fully amortized loans.
Well, as you know, one of the core benefits of a 504 loan, of course, is half to a third the down payment that's normally required from ordinary conventional loans. And when you now can go from a 20-year fixed, below market fixed interest rate to a 25-year, it's significant. It'll help make the program that much more competitive, which it really needs. It needs a little bit of a shot in the arm right now. So I think it'll benefit quite a bit. You're going to obviously increase the debt service coverage ratios by stretching the amortization a little bit. And it'll be nice not to have this strange thing we've had for 20-some plus years of a 25-year amortization on the first lien 504 and a 20-year amortization on the second. It kind of aligns everything nice.
Chris, as you know, I follow very closely 7A numbers and 504 numbers. 7A, we're up, 67% over the last 8 years. 504 has been flat to be charitable. What's going on?
Well, it has a fall off from fiscal year 2012. It's averaged anywhere from 5 to 10% growth year over year since then at most. But yeah, it's definitely been behind 7A. I think you can attribute it to the artificially low short-term interest rates that we've had up until recent times. And you can also attribute it to a very frothy secondary market for 7A.
Oh, definitely. Hey, the second thing.
I think those are the big reasons.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about this as well, and this I think is huge news. The SBA 504 industry was up in arms because January 1st, all of a sudden, we had this personal liquidity test introduced. Right. I always thought 504 was economic development. We just looked at jobs. We weren't looking at credit elsewhere. Somewhere the agency lost its way and said, okay, no, we got to follow credit elsewhere. They threw that all out. What's going on now?
They did. Just last week. It's amazing. I don't know what the lesson is here. Maybe if the squeaky wheel gets the grease, perhaps. I'm not sure, but it definitely seems to have moved away. With the new SOP on January 1st, away from the economic development purpose of the program. And I'm glad, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in the industry, especially CDCs, that are very excited now that we've gotten rid of this and gotten back to the way it used to be.
Well, it's always been counterintuitive. You have a minority shareholder who owns less than 20%, and they may have some sufficient resources to prop up that borrower. no, we don't want that. We don't want that. But now we're saying...
No, we don't want anything to strengthen the portfolio.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, now we're going to allow the uncle to come in who may have some deep pockets to help out a niece or a nephew and say, okay, I'm going to help out with my expertise, my capital, but this is your deal, and I think this is a great move for Main Street, for rural America, for SBA, and for 504. And who am I missing?
No, you're not missing anybody. I mean, and the borrowers. It's a good deal for the borrowers.
All right, I missed them. Good point. Yeah.
That's just one. But I think, you know, SBA will be pleased one day when we have the next recession, because this will probably help solidify the portfolio. It was not a real good move. It's just like when they got rid of the personal liquidity test years ago. Thank goodness they did that, because you allowed people who wanted to choose better terms and conditions that are from a 504 loan than doing a conventional loan. You brought them into the program, and they will be solid credits, and they will help prop up the portfolio in bad times and obviously in good as well.
Chris, I always appreciate you. That our go-to guy for SBA 504 lending, Chris Hearn, founder, CEO, Fountainhead Capital out of Orlando, temporarily assigned in San Francisco. Thanks, Chris.
All right. See you, Bob.
Coleman webinar instructor Lance Sexton, who is also our online training instructor, has a great clip on his recent loan closer training that I thought I'd include. And it's very important when we talk about documenting credit elsewhere.
One other thing I want you to add to the credit memorandum on SBA loans, of all SBA loans, not just SBA loans under 350 or over 350, a credit elsewhere section needs to be involved in your credit memorandum. You need to clearly identify in the credit memorandum how you're meeting the credit elsewhere requirements, whether the term is longer than your commercial lending policy will allow, whether the collateral is not meeting commercial lending policy and that's why you're meeting credit elsewhere, or whether, if, as an example, it's a startup business and your commercial lending policy does not allow you to lend to startups. But there clearly needs to be a credit elsewhere section in every credit memorandum on an SBA loan. If you've ever been through an SBA on-site review, and again, credit elsewhere has been in the SOP for quite some time, but it's became critically important with the release of the 5010-5J. It's became critically important because Congress has gotten very interested in whether or not SBA loans meet the credit elsewhere standard. So you need to clearly have a credit elsewhere section in your credit memorandum. And it can't just be a copy and paste job from loan to loan to loan. It needs to show that you've used thought in how this particular loan meets the credit elsewhere standard and why it qualifies as an SBA loan. Just an added nugget for your credit memorandum to make your life easier in two circumstances: if you're going through an on-site or off-site review by SBA, or if the loan defaults and you're presenting that loan for guaranteed purchase, you will be asked questions about credit elsewhere. If you've addressed it in your credit memorandum, you're going to be in good shape. Hey guys, thank you for participating in this session. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Hey, I really appreciate all the feedback that I've got on the podcast. It's done better than Lance and I thought it would. But we're also trying to experiment with other formats. And this was an interesting clip that I'm sure you never saw about how important the Census Bureau, we all think it's consumer or population, is for small business. Listen to this clip.
It's all about making smart decisions for my business.
Meet James, the proud owner of a very popular local restaurant.
When we decided it was time to open our second location, we needed information to help us pick the right spot. And you know where we found it? The U.S. Census Bureau. Sure, they measure the population, but they have data on the whole economy, every industry and geography. It helped us find the perfect spot in just the right location.
The most comprehensive collection of business statistics is the Economic Census. The Economic Census comes every 5 years and is conducted online. Responses by companies are kept confidential and are required by law. This data fuels the local, regional, and national statistics used for planning and decision making. Statistics used by business owners like James.
Sure work for our business.
The Economic Census. Data on every U.S. industry and geography that can help businesses grow. Visit census.gov for more information.
Thank you for joining us today for the Coleman Report Update and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.